was Collingwood making the Super Netball finals last year, and we actually lost the game to make finals by percentage. So it was a weird feeling. Our head coach had COVID at the time, so I was sitting in her seat, and it was very specific depending on how high the score was as well. We were under 48 goals at the end. We could only lose by 1. Or if we were above that, we could lose by 2. So I was sitting there as the score was ticking over the whole game, just making sure we knew what we needed to get. I checked it probably 100 times and everyone turned to me at the siren and were like, are we in? We didn't know. Even though I knew that we were in and I'd done the calculation so many times, it was still stressful.
G'day guys, coming up on the show today is Bianca Litchfield. Bianca is a performance analyst at Collingwood's AFLW and Super Netball teams. Bianca is one of the SportsGRAD community OGs with some great experience at Collingwood as an intern, as well as at the MCG in customer service and a bit of rowing coaching and gymnastics coaching thrown in between before she eventually landed her role in performance analytics. Bianca is part of the many women absolutely killing it in the sports industry as we celebrate International Women's Day this week. Let's go.
I started volunteering.
It's all about who you know in sport.
Am I going to be calling the last 10 seconds of the grand final?
You can connect with the interviewer. The hand goes up when they've got to make a decision.
Having a network is one of the most important things you can do.
I didn't necessarily follow my passion. I followed my curiosity.
Once you've worked in sport, there's no going back.
And then lo and behold, before I left, I got offered 2.
Hello and welcome to the SportsGRAD podcast, the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry. I'm Ryan Walker and joining me in the studio is the pie man, Reuben Williams. We had 2 mates who met at Cricket Australia and each week we learn how people made it in the sports industry and then tease out their career decisions, work habits, skills and all the things they do to make them great. So you can learn how to get your first job or your next job in sport and progress your career. Rubes, how are you, mate? The pie man. What do you think about that one?
The pie man. I don't know where to. I love pies. I don't mind the Collingwood Football Club either. Growing up, I had a lot of Collingwood Football Club players in my dream team and Supercoach, so don't mind the pies.
I like the pies as well, and main reason I love the pies is because we beat him in the flag in 2018. I know it's 5 years ago now, but I'll always have a soft spot for Collingwood. Unlucky on that day in September, but
I must say it would be one of the great places to work if you're in sport in Melbourne.
Yeah,
like you're right next to the city, you're right next to the Tan, you're right next to the MCG. You've got one of the greatest facilities in world sport in one of the greatest cities in the world. It's just like prime location.
Yeah, I reckon it's certainly in the discussion of top 3. I reckon in Melbourne you got the backdrop of the MCG as well. You can't get much better. And the deck, my God, it's amazing. Hey, International Women's Day this week, which is super exciting. So I thought I might ask you, who are some of the women in the sports industry at the moment that you really admire, who you look up to? Because there are a plethora of them. We could probably do a whole episode on them, but keen to hear some of the names out there who you think are just amazing at what they do.
Yeah, great question. Well, the ones that immediately come to mind are probably the ones who I worked under at Cricket Australia. So Steph Beltrami was my executive general manager when I finished up there. She's been at cricket for about 20 years. I reckon she even featured in a article that reeled off the top 50 most influential women in the sports industry, which is fair enough because she looks after the broadcast negotiations for Cricket Australia. So massive job. So she's a great one. Belinda Clark was also there when we were at cricket. She's an incredible person. Just got a statue built to honour her, like first female cricketer to have a statue built of her, which is amazing. So we were incredibly lucky to work with her at cricket too. Antonia Beggs is another one that comes to mind who was at cricket but has since gone on to TLA over in the UK. So she's another very purpose-driven leader who, funnily enough, came from a background in investment banking, saw the light and now is making an impact in sport. So there's 3 that come to mind.
Yeah. Nice, yeah. And I think some podcast guests that we've had as well. So, Kelly Ryan, CEO of Netball Australia, she was amazing to chat to and just seeing what she's doing at netball. Obviously got Libby Owens as well, who, again, is just an absolute superstar. We absolutely love Libby, and her insights into the world of data were just unreal as well. So there's many out there.
Yeah.
We could reel them off.
Plenty of younger ones as well too. Emily Collin, great friend of the show, over at Cricket Australia. Eliza Dewar at the Carlton Football Club, pardon me. Urmila Rosario, the team manager of the Australian women's cricket team. And now Bianca Litchfield at the Collingwood Football Club. So there's women in sport everywhere, absolutely killing it. I must say, another one that comes to mind is Katie Rogers, good friend of us, up in Sydney, who's just joined the Manly Sea Eagles. Just started her career doing a fantastic job. Tanisha Rao, another great one in motorsport. So there's plenty around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic to be associated with so many great women in the sports industry. So it's a great week and a great celebration as well. Follow us on LinkedIn if you want to connect with us and hundreds of others working in sport. Become a member of the SportsGrad community. Ruse, what is happening in our community at the moment? Because the Discord is going wild and there's a lot of jobs being won. There's lots happening.
Yeah, there's plenty going on. There's heaps of jobs, heaps of events, plenty of discussion, plenty of people helping each other, which is great. We love to see all that. We love calling out the wins of our community. I'm going to call out a few wins from a few of our female members who have just been smashing it recently. So the first one is Zoe Van Malken. We mentioned Zoe a week ago, but she has just started working with the Dutch Motorsport Association over in Holland, which is just incredible to even think about. V Truon just got an internship with Ministry of Sport. Well done to you, V. Ebony Flanagan has just been down in Geelong completing an internship with TLA at the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race. We caught up with her at our meetup, and she looks like she was still buzzing. So
yeah, she loved it.
Good on you, Ebony. And then a quick shout out to a couple of women behind the scenes at SportsGrad. Millie, who does a lot of work with us, helping with our socials, and Acacia, who helps out with our membership as well. Both of those women are absolutely smashing it in their roles here. So well done to you guys. Couple of jobs. These ones have just gone up. Women and Girls Participation Coordinator at Basketball Victoria. Another one, Membership Officer at the Brisbane Broncos up north. And then this is a really cool one with Kojo. Front of house / production assistant. If you don't know who Kojo are, they have one of the coolest agencies running around doing all the event pres for major sports. So check those out. And events. We love our Ask SportsGrad segment every Wednesday night. This week, we've got Jordan Iannuzzi from the New York Red Bulls. And then the week after that, we're chatting all things LinkedIn. So there's plenty coming up at the moment.
Yeah.
Because there's so much coming up and there's so much to stay on top of, if you don't want to try and remember everything, just let us send you a newsletter. Every Friday we send out a newsletter kind of detailing all the latest jobs, all the events, Q&As, all the latest podcast episodes. So if you want to receive that, head to sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter and you can subscribe to that to get that in your inbox. There's also a link in the show notes to join. So do that. You know it's good for you.
Fantastic. Well, grab a pen. Enjoy this chat with Bianca Litchfield. Before we jump into the episode, we've got a quick message from our good friends at Deakin University. Deakin has been a huge supporter of SportsGrad since day one. If you're currently studying or you've just finished studying, having a postgrad qualification in sports management on your resume can give you a huge leg up over other potential candidates applying for that same role. So if you want to pump up your resume and get specialised knowledge in sports behaviour, law, marketing, ethics, finance, governance and strategy, take a look at Deakin's postgrad qualifications. Their Master of Business in Sports Management is not one of, but the best one in Australia, ranked at number 1. So add a postgrad to your resume, and that's our tip for the episode. SportsGrad royalty, Bianca, welcome to the SportsGrad podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Bianca, we've wanted to get you in this room for a while now, so it is terrific to be chatting with you finally. Ryan mentioned, but you were one of the first OG members back in the day when it all kicked off in late 2020. I'm not sure why he signed up. It was a very very scrappy offering back at the time, but it's been good to kind of follow your journey ever since.
Yeah, some very hard convincing from you two, I think.
And I was scrolling through your LinkedIn the other day, and your 2022 looked absolutely jam-packed because you had 2 AFLW seasons, a VFL season as well. You've got the Super Netball season as well. And I think you did something like 40 matches across the entire year. Most people would only do 20 odd. You did 40 match preparations. What was that entire year like for you?
Yeah, it was definitely hectic. And on top of that, I was still coaching rowing at the time as well in the summer.
Whoa.
Just to add to that. Yeah, it was very hectic, very full on. But the time went very quick, as you would expect.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like one of the more hectic schedules. Your calendar would be hectic and it would require a bit of time management. How did you even handle all that?
A lot of preparation. And yeah, as you said, my calendar was very full, very colour coordinated. But I'm an organised person, so handled it all right. Definitely racked up the frequent flyer points though.
Yeah. We follow you on Instagram. I saw you at some beautiful parts of Australia. I think the Super Netball season takes you up to Queensland a fair bit, which is great. You're going up there soon, right?
Yes, heading up there tomorrow for our Team Girls Cup pre-season tournament.
Nice.
4 days up there, which will be really cool.
Nice one. Bit of a, people don't talk about that benefit of working in sport. You get your frequent flyers up wherever you are, Qantas, velocity points for Virgin as well. But yeah, we've got a new segment this year, which I'm sure you've heard, and it's called Quickfire Questions. We're going to fire a few questions at you. You'll answer super quick, and then if there's anything interesting at the end, we'll touch on it. But I will kickstart the segment with, what was your first ever job?
I was a gymnastics coach and judge.
And what did you study at uni?
I studied a Bachelor of Science and then Masters of Applied Sports Science.
Favourite sporting moment?
I think I need to go personal with this one, with the emotional pull. It was Collingwood making the Super Netball finals last year. In 2022, we made it by a single goal in the end. And we actually lost the game to make finals by percentage. So it was a weird feeling, but it was very exciting. And our head coach had COVID at the time, so I was sitting in her seat. And yeah, it was a very exciting loss to make finals.
And you got to coach the team for a game?
Somewhat.
Love it. What's your favourite interview question to ask of candidates?
I like to ask, how would your friends or family describe you?
Yeah, I've been asked that before. It's a toughie. What's a book or a podcast you'd recommend?
Tough one. I don't really read or listen to podcasts in terms of work. I definitely find it more valuable just talking to other people in the industry and getting a wide range of perspectives. But in saying that, I did just start a book called Atomic Habits.
Oh, great book. Great book.
Just finished it.
Yeah, really enjoying that one.
It's a bit of a buzz book. Everyone's really onto it, aren't they?
Yeah, I was very heavily
He
convinced.
started the trend. I'm convinced.
Yeah, so I'm finding that very useful.
Nice.
Only halfway though.
Beautiful. We'll compare habit trackers later. Your grassroots clubs, who are they? Are you associated with any at the moment?
Not currently. I was at Banks Rowing Club and was on the committee there for a little bit, volunteering.
Nice. And finally, if you had 30 minutes to pick someone's brain, who would it be?
Also a tough one. But I think work-wise, I'd probably want to speak to someone in the NBA. I just think their schedule is even more crazy than ours was last year, and I just think that they would have some really insightful tips, and I'd love to see how they work.
Nice. That would be great.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, Jay Lee is one of our podcast guests from way back in the day. He's the Vice President of Product Experience, I'm going to say. Very interesting guy. So if you're looking for a good podcast, here's a good one.
With the when you said you lost the game to make the finals, does that mean Collingwood had to lose by a certain amount to make it?
Yeah, and it was very specific depending on how high the score was as well. It was, if we were under 48 goals at the end, we could only lose by 1, or if we were above that, we could lose by 2.
Did you have to do this analysis?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So I was sitting there as the score was ticking over
Yeah.
the whole game, just making sure we knew what we needed to get. Ideally, we wanted to win, but yes, it came down to losing by 2.
So were you feeling the pressure like I better have my maths right, otherwise we could miss out here?
Yes, I checked it probably 100 times, and everyone turned to me at the siren and were like, "Are we in? Are we in? We didn't know." And
You're
I
just
said,
plugging away on the laptop.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
What was it like trying to talk to the head coach while they're saying, "Are you sure, Bianca?"
Well, it was the assistant coach next to me because the head coach was at
Oh,
home
you were head
with
coach.
COVID. Yeah, it was a bit stressful. Even though I knew that we were in and I'd done the calculation so many times, it was still stressful telling her that we were in.
Amazing.
insane.
Bianca, sounds like an incredible job you've got. Can you tell us a bit about some of the sequence of roles that you've had leading up to the role that you've got now? You mentioned you're involved back at your rowing club in the day. Funnily enough, one of our previous guests who we just had on, Melissa Lawton, also started off in the rowing clubs of Melbourne and is now leading content over at Sail GP and went via Facebook in New York and Red Bull in Austria. So if that's anything to go by, your trajectory is on a good path. But tell us a bit about the sequence of roles that you had and sliding doors moments between you starting off and getting a job at Collingwood.
Yeah, definitely not on that level yet.
There's still time.
Yes, definitely. So I started, coaching gymnastics and then rowing, and did a bit of customer service at the MCG. That was probably, I think, 5 years. And then when I was at uni, I did an internship with Collingwood in the men's program. And I think that really set me up for my career now. Although it didn't directly lead to a job at the time during COVID and all of that, it definitely laid some good connections down when I was there and put in the hard work, and that really paid off in the end. And now I am in analysis in netball and AFLW.
Amazing.
Nice. How did it lead from that? You obviously had that internship, so you had to build those relationships. Is that ultimately what led to you getting this role now?
It was a bit indirect, almost, I don't want to say chance, but right place, right time. I had someone reach out in the netball program, said they have this job, and it just happened that I had my references from Collingwood anyway, from my internship.
Nice.
And that got the conversation starting.
How did they know to reach out to you?
It was through a uni connection through my degree, my master's.
So one of your lecturers put you in touch with this person from Collingwood?
Yes, correct.
So you must have been acing uni at the time for them to think, all right, let's put this person forward.
Yeah, it was my lecturer. It was the head of the course, and I had a bit to do with her in my research assignment as well. So we'd had a few touch points previously, and that really helped.
It pays to stay close to the lecturers at uni.
Yeah.
I know Franny Tay, one of our friends from Cricket Australia now at the FIFA Women's World Cup, she got recommended by one of her lecturers at Deakin to get her first job at cricket. I got very lucky once because I submitted half an assignment, got my result back, and they said, you've got 37%. And I was like, this isn't right. And then realised I'd submitted the wrong thing. Thankfully, I had a good relationship with the lecturer that I said, can you please remark it? And he said, yeah, no worries. So no matter if you just want your assignments upgraded or if you want a job, stay close to your lecturers.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. They're good resources. They're very knowledgeable and they have the connections, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So was there anyone still at Collingwood between when you were doing your internship and when you started working there? And did they come into play in you getting the role?
Yeah, definitely. My supervisor from my internship is still a big part of the club. And yeah, all the people that I worked with in the analysis department, bar one or two maybe. So still a lot of people around that I met during that time, still working at the club.
Is that Anthony?
Anthony's still there, yes.
Yep.
Yes, he was my supervisor.
Yeah.
Shout out to Anthony. He'd be listening.
Yeah, great man.
Nice one. And why did you go down the analysis path? Is that, how did you know that was the job that was for you in the end?
I don't think you ever know, but I tried it in the internship. The internship was more broad. It was sort of high-performance sports science, and analysis. And then when I was doing the internship, I thought this is actually something that I'm all right at. I'm quite a logical thinker and it made sense to me, and I like using data to drive decision making and understand how that works. So yeah, I just enjoyed it during my time in the internship. I didn't think that was the part that I would have liked the most, but here we are.
Was there something that kind of, after you'd gone down that track, was there something that really confirmed that for you, where you thought, I'm definitely in the right space here?
Not really. No, that's probably not the answer that people would want to hear. I think you're not always going to be 100% sure, but I'm enjoying it and I still feel really challenged by it, and I enjoy going to work every day. So I think, yeah, that's probably as good an indication as any.
I know some people who are like super wizards with Excel and super analytical, and they don't just do it in their job, they do it in their entire lives. Like I had one mate, Chris, who was looking to buy a house. And so he took all the data from all the different houses that he was looking at, put them on an Excel spreadsheet and drew up this graph. And he could like plot on a chart to see like what was like the correlation between like price and property size or something in square meters. So I don't know, do you find it seeping into other areas of your life?
We definitely have someone like that as well at work, and he in COVID used it to track Bitcoin and shares, I think, in a similar way. I don't think I'm into that sort of nitty-gritty level of data, but definitely the analytical side and logical side and that side of the analysis, yes.
When you said you love using data to lead decision-making, what are some of those big decisions that you sort of help them make through your work?
It can be a lot of things. Particularly in the off-season, we look a lot at league trends and where we think the league's going to go in the next year or 2 or 3. So looking at that data and trying to figure out where we think, the top of the league's going to be sitting in different stats, and where we predict we're going to go and where we want to be, and trying to just design our strategy around that. So not just looking at the numbers specifically, but looking at different areas of our game plan already and what we have and where we can improve and how we're actually going to take the steps to do that.
Does that come into, does your work flow into list management as well, looking at what types of players other teams have got and what types of players an ideal premiership netball team has?
Yeah, somewhat. I definitely provide some stats around players and for that recruiting space. We don't have a whole recruiting department like AFL, so it's a little bit different of a process. But it's definitely something I'm trying to learn more, lean into a bit more and learn in the future.
Nice.
So would you look at like, the trends of the league and how often, say, players are shooting super shots, and you would look at your players and be like, okay, who is our best, shot taker? And you'd be like, okay, Soph Garvin, whenever you get into that zone, make sure you're shooting for 2.
Yeah, that comes into it for sure, and the super shot one's a tricky one.
We love the super shot. We went to a game last year. I reckon we've mentioned it like 15 times in this podcast now, but went to the semi-final and we were just like, super shot, go. Just go hard at it. It's great.
Yes, it has been a bit controversial in the past. I think some teams like it, some teams don't. But yeah, it's becoming more and more common that teams are not so much relying on it, but they're building it into the game plan now that we're 2-3 years down the track with it.
Yeah. Nice.
You mentioned before you're on the road with the team, like you're building up those frequent flyer points a fair bit. What's it like travelling with the team? Because on a recent experience that I had with the UAE cricket team at the T20 World Cup, we would go and play a game, come back to the hotel, and then the head coach would like call a meeting and it wouldn't finish until like 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, is this what all professional teams are like? Because this is pretty extreme. Is that the case with Collingwood? What goes on when you're on the road with the team?
Not necessarily, not 2 a.m. Probably depends on, when we're playing and that sort of thing. For example, this weekend when we're in the Gold Coast, we're playing 4 games across 3 days. So there probably will be some late nights involved, but more so individual work and working with the coaches. The team's obviously not up till 2 a.m. reviewing the game. We'll give them their bite-sized info and review what they need to do just before the games, keep it short and sharp. But yeah, sometimes we can be up late at night reviewing a game if we've got another one the next day, or coming up midweek. We had some games last year. But it's a lot of fun travelling with the team. You get to really meet the players and, spend that time bonding with the other staff members. Yeah.
I can imagine it'd be a lot of fun because the squad is is it 12?
10.
10 per club. So you know everyone so personally, whereas you think about some other sports footy, for instance, nearly has 50 on the list. So you're not going to know everyone so personal. So I'd imagine, getting on the road would be a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, so when we're not working and we have that small amount of downtime, it is really fun, and we've created some really good friendships within the group. It is enjoyable.
And you mentioned analysing a game. How long does that process take you?
It can depend on the game. We like to try and not review wins and losses differently, but you're always probably going to scrutinise a loss a little bit more. It depends on when the turnaround is and how much detail we'll go into as well. But it can take an hour or two to review it fully, and then sort of digest it takes longer, and then to put it into a meaningful presentation for the athletes, takes a couple more hours after that as well.
Yeah. And so that first hour or two, are you spending that kind of coding the game before analysing it?
We code a lot live in netball so that we've got that live feedback for the coaches. So we go back and code and add a little bit more data and meaning to those codes. But a lot of it is actually just watching the game back and reviewing it that way.
And what are some of the key stats in netball? What really indicates whether you're going to win a match or lose a match?
There's not much that changes across teams, which is the interesting thing. A lot of the teams review the same sort of stats as everyone else. It's centre pass conversion we're looking at, so how often you convert your own centre passes, then how many turnovers you can get off another team, and converting those as well. They're probably the main ones.
Nice. Yeah, it's super interesting. We had Shane Leonage a couple of weeks back, and he was talking about all these sort of different bits of technology that he uses. Are you using similar things, or what are the pieces of the programs and whatnot that you guys use?
We predominantly use Sports Code and Huddle to analyse our games, code them, upload them to the cloud for the athletes to watch, and then we do a bit of work in Excel to sort of do the more nitty-gritty data analysis.
Yeah, cool. Nice. What does an ideal day look like for you in, the heat of a netball season?
Can I say winning a premiership?
You can say that. But what does winning the premiership mean from 9 till 5?
Not as exciting as that, but I think, we're trying to focus on the little things and improving our processes day to day. My normal day sort of comprises, 3 different components mostly. One's mentoring some interns that we have in the program, leading them, teaching them how to be an analyst essentially and do what I do day to day. And then the other part of it is analysing training or games, whatever it is that week. And I guess the last part to that is the more overall strategy and analysing those league trends that we were talking about before and how that it goes into the design of our overall game plan.
Nice. Amazing. Are there any standout interns coming through at the moment?
Definitely.
Name and shame them.
Yeah.
They are. It's quite competitive out there, I think.
How many would you take on in a regular season?
Last year, across all of the programs, I had 20 across the year.
Wow.
20?
Not all at the same time.
I was going to say, got an army coming in.
Manageable. Yeah. We've got 4 in the netball program at the moment.
Nice. The analytics army.
Yeah.
No wonder Collingwood continues to hit the top. Phenomenal. Bianca, this week, International Women's Day is coming up on the 8th of March, which is a chance to celebrate the achievements of women. And we feel a little bit awkward being two dudes asking these questions, but it's still an important topic, so we'll fire away anyway. But I wanted to dive into your experience being a female in the sports industry, which is male-dominated. And if we could perhaps start right back when you were going through uni and you're looking at the sports industry and there's more men than women in this industry, how did that make you feel going into it? And were there any barriers that you had to overcome to get your first foot in the door?
I don't think it necessarily changed my perspective on, wanting to work in sport. It definitely has been male dominated, you can say, previously, and particularly football for that. We've had 130 years of football at Collingwood now, and we're only into year 7 of women's sport. So obviously that does make a difference. But personally, I can only speak for myself. I don't think I have had too many barriers, and it didn't change my perspective of still wanting to work in sport. I think the sports industry is changing very quickly, and I guess I'm very privileged and lucky to be a part of a club that is so supportive and part of that change. And I'm very lucky to work across 2 women's programs that are very different, and get to see the full range and work across 2 different codes and learn from so many different people.
Nice. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that's unusual, right? Because I feel like we speak to a lot of women out there that say there are barriers and there are, things that I think about and, maybe this isn't for me because it is so male dominated. So it's great that, I guess, it's kind of a good thing that Collingwood has been so strong in women's sport, especially netball, AFLW, that it's created such a great environment for you to jump in and be part of that. Yeah, definitely.
I think we have, on last count, it was 94 female athletes, which is more than we have male athletes. So
fantastic.
If you take that into consideration, you can't really say that it's male dominated in that way.
Yeah, it's a good sign that things are changing.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. In terms of what do you think organisations can do to make it easier and more comfortable for women working in sport? And I guess from that, how do they make it easy for you to thrive and really, reduce some of those barriers that often people are talking about?
Yeah, like you said, just talking about it is one way, and I think it doesn't need to be like an organisational level, CEO level, exec level. It comes from everyone. And shameless plug, but we have a group at Collingwood called the Women in Black and White group, which I'm part of, and so many amazing women are part of that group, and our purpose is to always keep women on the agenda. And it's just the small things. It's making sure that women have a voice and feel seen and feel heard and have that ability to speak up. So, yeah, I think just the little things keep women on the agenda and, keep pushing for their voice to be heard.
One other thing that kind of comes to mind in my kind of limited view of all this is that I often hear women speak about how if a role comes up or if an opportunity comes up, often they feel like they have to be 100% qualified or overqualified to even think about going for it. Whereas if you go to the male counterparts, maybe only 70% or 60% of them needs to feel confident for them to go for it. Is that something that you've noticed in yourself or other people? And how do you think more women can feel encouraged to start to take on new opportunities without feeling like they have to absolutely be perfect?
Yeah, it definitely is that perfectionist sort of tendency, and maybe not all women feel it, but I do. And I feel, less confident, not so much in my ability, but my ability to sell myself at times. And yeah, I think you just have to have the confidence in knowing those skills that you do have, and not think of it any other way, but think of yourself as, I'm really good at this job, and that's why I deserve to be here.
Like you got picked for a reason, like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Would that be like the number one thing that you think holds women back?
No, there's definitely many things. Yeah, and it's all personal, I guess, and subjective, and you can't just stereotype, one sort of way that women feel they're held back. I'm sure there's a lot of other barriers as well that women feel, and not just women, people everywhere.
Yeah. And who are some of those other women in the sports industry that you really look up to and admire and inspire you?
Honestly, so many.
List them off.
I think particularly like within our club, we have so many great athletes that I look up to, and so many people that, juggle their family life outside of work and their career. And Ash Brazel, for one, she's one of our netballers and footballers, and she's got 2 beautiful kids and a wife at home, and she juggles so much. She's so inspirational. And then I guess if you're looking for another name, Jess Berger at Collingwood, she is the GM of women's football. And on a personal note, she has been one of the people to teach me a lot in my career. She's a real trailblazer of women in football, women in sport in general, and she's just a gun at her job. And she just really brings up everyone else around her, and I'm so lucky to have been around her and have her guide me as well.
Yeah, I've heard Jess's name come up a fair bit. She's definitely making waves in the industry from what I've heard.
She's certainly podcast territory. And I would have thought that's on the agenda for 2023. Bianca, if you could go back to the beloved Deakin Library, we've all been there, one of the great libraries in Australia, really. If you could go back and leave a note on the desk for your younger self to read, what would that piece of advice be?
I think don't get so caught up in trying to work in sport. Just explore what you actually like, talk to different people and find what you're passionate about. I think so many people think they're just passionate about sport, but they don't know what role they're interested in, and I think that's probably the wrong way to do it. You need to flip it, find what you're passionate about, what you would see yourself doing down the track and enjoying going to work doing, and then build from there.
Amazing.
Nice. That's good advice.
What else could you see yourself doing if you weren't doing this job?
I'm really interested in the high performance space in general, and trying to get more of a holistic sort of overview of high performance and that recruiting space, overall strategy and that direction.
Amazing.
Nice.
Have you, I suppose there's plenty of amazing people at Collingwood to help you out there, but there's a good one that we know of called Binuk Kadutawaku over at the Adelaide Crows, who used to be a lawyer and then taught himself analytics and ended up becoming like the head of list management analytics at the Adelaide Crows. So perhaps a good one. I know Collingwood's doing incredibly well too. But yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
The other thing that came to mind too is have you still got your art business going along? Would you ever venture into that one day?
I don't currently.
Give it a plug. I didn't know there was an art business. What's going on here?
Yeah, in COVID, I started doing some pet portraits for friends.
For
gifts, and it kind of grew from there. But I don't really have the time currently.
I bought one of them once for Hamish McInnes, actually.
Nice.
Former podcast guest. Last one. What do you think the next 5 years brings for you? Because you've obviously had, I think you said 3 years at the Pies now, which has seemed like it's gone super quick just because we've known you for the last few years. But where do you think you're going to be heading in the next 5?
I don't like to pigeonhole myself. But like I said before, I'm really interested in overall strategy and kind of trying to delve into that a bit more. Trying to grow as a person as well and build my confidence and just learn more about all aspects of high performance.
Nice. Stay close to Jess Berger. That might be a good way to go. Ruse, obviously we had Bianca, who's analytics gun. Who are some other episodes similar that people can be listening to?
Yeah, well, we've also had a number of fantastic women on the show too. Going right back to cover another female in analytics, there was Lauren Boothby in episode 10.
Yeah.
We've also had Kelly Ryan, the CEO of Netball Australia, on another fantastic listen. Another one from Netball Australia is Kimberly Furness in episode 128. Sorry, Kelly Ryan was 185, I believe. And Libby Owens, another terrific woman who is the CEO of Champion Data, who basically own all the data that people like Bianca are out there analysing. She is episode 204, I believe. So, plenty of fantastic episodes if you enjoyed Bianca.
Nice. Well, Bianca, thank you so much for coming in. As we said at the start, we've been wanting to get you in for a while, and it's great to just hear about your journey to get to the Pies and now all the stuff that you're doing. It's super interesting. Hope you don't mind us picking you to bits in terms of those questions about your day to day, but we absolutely love it. I'm sure everyone tuning in is super interested as well. So thanks again for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Guys, it's time now for AskSportsGRAD, everyone's favourite segment, where every week we answer a question from the SportsGRAD community. If you'd like to ask a question first, just become a SportsGRAD member at our website, sportsgrad.com.au/community to join super quickly. Then add your question to the channel named AskSportsGRAD. Rubes, this one comes from Maddie, who says, if a salary increase isn't an option, how do I negotiate other benefits that could be applied instead?
Great question. Super important. And I know like a lot of people can get frustrated with the salaries that are on offer in the sports industry because it's not the most lucrative industry in the world. So what else can you negotiate into your contract to make it feel worthwhile to you? The first thing I'll say is don't completely let go of trying to negotiate some sort of salary increase into your contract, because if they can't give you one at this point in time, what you can do is negotiate a trigger. So if you say to them like, what do I have to do to get a $5,000, $10,000 pay increase? Then they can say to you, well, actually, you've got to hit these goals, you've got to hit these targets, then we can increase your salary. So you can, if one is not immediately available right now, find out what do you have to do to be able to trigger that.
Yeah.
And that not every organisation will think of this. You will probably have to think of your own almost like development plan and your own goals to trigger these salary increases. So you've got to come prepared to say, all right, for $5,000 extra dollars, I will hit these targets, or for $10,000, I'll hit these targets.
Yeah.
So don't lose sight of the fact that more money might not be available right this second. Try and think about what can I do in the future to be worth that in the future. So that's one way that you can try and negotiate a pay increase into your contract. But if you're looking at other benefits, have a think about the non-tangible things that you can get as well. Perhaps you want to work from home more days than not. I'd encourage you to think about what else can the business offer you that's not financial but just helps you live your life more easily. So work from home is an easy one. You'd have to look through the company benefits to find others. These things will become obvious to you depending on who the organisation is. But I'd encourage you to think about what can this organisation offer me that doesn't require their money but would make it easier for me to do this job. So that's the path that I'd be taking.
Yep. A couple of things to this. I would say if it's a job that you've applied for and you're deciding whether to take it, it might be different where this question's heading if you're already in a role. But say somewhere's offering you 70. Say you want 70 grand from for your role. They're offering you 65 or 60. A couple of things with that, try and meet the middle. So if they're offering you 60, say 65, see what they do. But I'd also not turn down a role for the sake of $5 grand, because it might seem like that's a lot of money, but when you really break it down on paycheck to paycheck, it's literally like a couple $100
after tax as well.
After tax, you're hardly even going to see it. So really, at that point, you're wanting a role to get the experience, and there's no point turning down a role and not getting that experience for the sake of a couple of extra $100 on your paycheck. What you could do is say, yes, I'll take that, understand that you can't pay me more, but in 12 months' time, can we have something in the diary to reassess it and see where we're at? So you know that they're willing to at least chat about it in the future. You're not just accepting it and you feel like you've just laid down and that's it. Have them commit to having a discussion down the line.
And that's where that conversation becomes super easy if you have a very clear plan in place to say, if I do X, Y, and Z, then, this will happen.
Totally.
You don't want to end up in that meeting and be like, well, now I've got to argue for my case again. If it's already there, it's already set up, then it should be a pretty quick conversation.
Yep. Awesome. Great question. A few of them have come through lately around salary. Bit of a theme lately.
Yep.
If you'd like to ask us a question or ask our friends in sport a question, sign up to become a SportsGrad member. Each week we jump on a Q&A where it's an open floor for you to ask us or industry professionals any of your questions. This Wednesday we are chatting about commercial partnerships with Jordan Iannuzzi. You would have heard him on the podcast. He is from the New York Red Bulls, which is an incredible organisation. So that's coming up on Wednesday. All these Q&As are recorded, so when you join, you get immediate access to all of our content. That's over 50 hours at the moment, which is a pretty cool little library. Find us on LinkedIn, plus give us some love with a rating if you enjoy the show. Subscribe on Apple or follow on Spotify. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, one last thing before you go. If you'd enjoy a quick email from us each Friday on all the latest job openings, networking events, Q&As with industry professionals and latest podcast episodes, then subscribe to the SportsGrad newsletter. Head to our website www.sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter to subscribe. There's also a link in our show notes to join.